truth is, we as human beings love stories. We do. We love love. And I want to tell you a love story today. But before I tell you the love story, I just want to talk a little bit about love in general. You know, I could probably talk for the rest of my career, and I probably will, talk about love. So let's start it off right. Let's start it off right. The reason that we talk so much and we care so much about love, I believe, is because love is our most direct experience of God. It is our most direct experience of the divine. When we give and we receive love, it's God loving itself. It's a beautiful, beautiful exchange. So many spiritual teachers have taught and written about the subject of love. So I want to share a couple of them. And the first one I want to share is from Hafiz, who is a Persian Sufi poet. If you've never read Hafiz, I highly recommend that you do that. And if you're in a loving relationship, read it with your beloved, because it's really wonderful writing. And he writes a lot about love, and he starts his book with this quote: "The subject tonight is love, and for tomorrow night as well. And as a matter of fact, I know of no better topic for us to discuss until we all die. Love." It is true. It is true. And so I begin with a love story. There's only one love, and that is the love of God. Now, we as human beings, we love to categorize things. It helps us make sense of things. Think about it. We do it with snow. How many different kinds of snow do we have? All different kinds of snow. And clouds. All different kinds of clouds. But just because we're missing one kind of snow or one kind of cloud, we don't declare we have no snow or we have no clouds. But we do that with love. We do that with love. When we have one kind of love missing from our lives, we find ourselves thinking that we are not lovable or we don't have love. So let's look at those different kinds of love for a second. We have parental love, the love that we share with our parents. We feel motherly love or fatherly love. That's one kind of love. We also have sibling love. Most of us have siblings, and we feel brotherly or sisterly love, or the lack thereof, in that relationship. We have love of coworkers. We create things together and we love them and we love the work that we do. That's one kind of love as well. We have that platonic friendship love that we just adore our friends and we consider them family, and that friendship love, that platonic love, is so important in our lives. Obviously, we have passionate, hot, romantic, marriage kind of love. That's another kind of love that's available to us. And then we have... Somebody was enthusiastic about that. And then we have what we call puppy love, when children love each other, or in my case, love of a puppy. I love my puppy so much. And then, okay, the kitty people in the room, there's kitty love too. Don't want to leave you out. Thank you very much. So the truth is that it's all God. It's all God loving itself. Think about that. And as you review those different types of love that we human beings label as such, when we review all those relationships in your life, where have you declared that love is missing? Where have you decided that I don't have love of this kind, or I don't have love of that kind? And the truth is, love is all around, because love is all there is. It just might not show up in one particular form or another in your experience at this moment. Think about that. Love is love. So Ernest Holmes, the founder of our philosophy, also wrote a lot about love. You can just read for a long time on Ernest Holmes and love. But here's what he said. He said, "Love is within us. It cannot be destroyed. It can be ignored. To the extent that we abandon love, we feel it has abandoned us. Denying love is our only problem. Embracing it is the only answer. Denying love is the only problem. Embracing love is the only answer. So when you think of all the things that you call problems in your life, where is love missing, or where are you denying that love is in your life? But my favorite quote of Holmes about love is he actually gives a definition of it. Holmes defines love as the impartation of the divine through the human. The impartation of the divine through the human. He goes on to clearly state, God is love, love is God. It's a pretty strong foundation to stand on. The impartation of the divine through the human. So when we think of life and all the relationships in it as a big web, the web of life and all the relationships that you have, we named a whole bunch of them a minute ago. That is a big web. And the pulse of life, the pulse of love, is constantly on that web available to us. We cut it off. We deny that there is love present, and we cut it off. And I consider relationships the wires over which source flows. And so if we are pinching off the wires of the relationships in our lives, we are denying love, and embracing it is the solution. And I believe that the impartation of the divine through the human, the givingness of God through us, I believe that is our purpose in life. It's what we're here for. To be the God, to be the love in every relationship and every situation. So if you wonder, who am I supposed to love? You're supposed to love the person standing right in front of you at all times. That is the person you are supposed to love. That's what we're here for, to be that light, to be that love. So I promised you a love story. I have an unconventional love story to tell you. And this story occurred when I was 6 years old. I was raised in Colorado. And this particular day, it was a snowy, very cold day in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado. Now, my father and my grandfather loved to ice fish. I have no clue why. But just like in the movie Grumpy Old Men, you go out on the lake, you drill a hole, you fish through the hole. Okay. They like to do that. So on this particular day, we took our campers. My grandparents had a camper and we had a camper, and we went up to Shadow Mountain Reservoir, which is somewhere in the Rocky Mountains. And they park along the side of the lake, and they go out into the middle of the lake and they drill a hole in the lake. Now that's very fascinating for the adults. The children are bored to death. So my brothers and I, we had the free to play. We could play. We were dressed in a bajillion different layers of scarves and hats and pants and snow gear, whatever. And we could do snowball fights, we could build forts, we could skate, we could sled, we could do whatever. But we had to do it on this side of the lake. So we had to stay from the walkway out to the ice fishing hole to this side. We could play, do whatever we wanted to play. The reason we couldn't go on this side of the lake is because on this side of the lake, there was an electric plant. And the electric plant used the water from the reservoir to make electricity. And then when the water circulated back out into the lake, it was warm. And so it would warm the water and thin the ice. And there were big black holes in the ice on this side of the lake. So we were not allowed to go over there. We had to play over here. So at this particular moment, my parents were both out at the fishing hole. And remember, I was 6. And I had this idea as a 6-year-old that if my father could catch fish in the hole that he was looking down in, I wondered if I could go over and see the fish in the big hole in the ice. And so, unaware of the danger, I took myself over the line out towards the big black holes in the ice. And as I walked towards the hole in the ice to see the fish, I remember taking a step, and as I put my foot down, I heard a pop, a very loud pop. And I remember their lines went out across the ice in every direction. And the ice that I was standing on tilted like this, I slid into the water, and the ice righted itself. And I couldn't swim. I was 6. I didn't know how to swim, but even if I did know how to swim, I couldn't have swum at that moment. Whatever it was, I couldn't do it. Because I had on so many clothes, first of all, and my body bobbed up. And I remember when I bobbed up, I felt the solid over my head. And in, I guess, a natural instinct of panic, I flailed. I began to flail about. And in my flailing, my hands caught the edge of the ice behind me, and I pulled on it. But every time I pulled on it, it would break because it was thin. So it kept breaking and breaking. And I would get my head above the water, and then it would break again. And I was so cold. I was so very, very cold. But I finally got to the point where I'd broken enough of the thin ice that I could put my arms up on the ice and kind of splay them out, and I could barely hold my head above the ice and just cling there. And I began to yell the word help, help. And I really do remember thinking, that's such a silly word. That's a strange word, but that's the only word I knew to yell, so I just yelled help, help. And my father and mother were way out on the ice, but between me and them was another fisherman. And this fisherman heard me or saw me first, and he came running towards me, and he stopped, and he unwound his scarf, and he kind of threw it towards me and said, grab my scarf, little girl, grab my scarf, grab my scarf. And I didn't want to let go of the ice. I didn't want to let go of the little bit of hold I had on it. I didn't want to let go, and I just said, no, no. And he's like really insistent, grab my scarf. And I said, I just want my daddy. I just want my daddy. I want my daddy. And my father, I could see beyond the fisherman, he began to run towards me and towards the situation. And as he ran, the fisherman wasn't aware of my father running, but I could see him. And I don't know if he stepped over the fisherman, around the fisherman, it didn't matter. He just reached down and grabbed me, lifted me up out of that water, and handed me to my mother, who rushed me to the camper that was very close by. And I remember my clothes were frozen solid before we could get into the camper, which was very close. I was so very, very cold. So that Shadow Mountain Reservoir experience was a pivotal moment, a very impactful day in my life. And the reason the details of this story are so clear to me is because I've told the story so many times. I told it as a child a lot, like show and tell or whatever. I would tell the story about it, and any time there's a story on the news of someone falling through ice or whatever, it's a story that comes up. I've told it many times as an adult as well, and people are interested in the story, and I think the reason they're interested is because it's a universal story. It illustrates some universal life experiences that we can all relate to. Let me break that down for you. We have all been the child in the story. Think about it. How many times in our lives have we made decisions against our better judgment, against what we've been told to do, and we get ourselves into situations that are over our head or that are very scary or frightening? We've all been there. How many times have you walked out on the thin ice of a life situation and gotten in over your head and realized that you needed the help of someone else? Where in your life have you made a choice and had to face consequences that would forever change the trajectory of your life? We've all been there. Perhaps you're there right now. Perhaps right now you're in an icy water situation in life where you feel alone and scared and vulnerable, and you don't know how to ask for help, or you don't know where to go for help. Perhaps you're denying the love that's available around you at this very moment. We've all been there. And then let's look at that safety-minded fisherman character in the story. We've all been him as well. Sometimes we have the tendency to keep our distance. When someone else is in a troubling situation, maybe we'll pray for them or think of them or send them good thoughts, but we just don't have it in us to get all the way in. We're holding back a little bit in self-protection. When we're asked to make a decision based on pure love and involvement or fear, we kind of hold ourselves back just a little bit. We've all been there. You know, when someone else is struggling with the consequences of their life choices, do we jump into compassion or do we jump into judgment? That's kind of that safety-minded fisherman. And he's a very interesting character in the story. But the most compelling character in the story right now in my life is my father. And to be honest, as many times as I've told this story in my life, it has only been recently that I've been able to think of the entire story from the perspective of my father. So here's the deal. He told me to not go on this side of the lake. He told me. He had given me everything possible to keep me warm and dry and safe. He made sure I had things to do, that my brothers and I were occupied. He did everything he could to make sure that I didn't get into that kind of situation. And he looks up, and there I am in the very situation he was trying to avoid. He could have hesitated. He could have hesitated. He could have kind of gotten stuck in his condemnation and said, serves are right. He could have. He could have held back and said, let's just see what happens next with her, young lady. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that for a single second. He broke into a dead run across that ice. I don't know if he jumped over the fisherman or went around him. I have no idea. But he went right into the danger and grabbed me. His love put him into that dangerous situation, grabbed me. His love lifted me up out of that icy water and handed me to life-affirming warmth. That's what he did. Now, just let me be clear. I am not illustrating duality or a belief in a father-like God. What I'm illustrating is the love of God that worked through my father that day, that works through us whenever we're in that situation. The love that heals, the love that sets us free, the love that Karen Drucker sings about, that love is what ran through my father that day. And we have all played the part of the father. We've all done it. We're in that role when we allow love to guide our actions, when we reach out to another and we lift them literally or spiritually in their situation, where we know the highest and best for them and we actually take action to make a difference. That's when we're playing the father in the role, when love guides our actions and our reactions to anything life throws us. And so if we're going to play these three roles in life over and over again, how can we more fully impart the divine through us when we find ourselves in one of them? Let's review the roles again. So when we are in the role of the child, when we find ourselves in that place where we've made a choice and we're facing consequences that are difficult, the greatest love that we can allow to run through us is self-love. Love of self. Often that looks like self-forgiveness. Often that looks like self-compassion. And realizing that life is challenging. We're human beings having this experience that is meant to evolve us. And every single human experience we have is valuable. And so when we can look at ourselves with self-love and compassion and allow that love to run through us, then we can understand that our choices are perfect. There are no mistakes. We're always being led to a higher and higher expression of ourselves, and we have to get ourselves into situations that the soul loves. The soul loves ice water and hot water and all the different kinds of things we get ourselves in because we strengthen ourselves and we grow in them. And so when we can accept our journey and accept our humanity, we are no longer denying the love that is available to us, from the God within. Because here's the deal. When we don't love ourselves, we don't trust that anyone else can love us either. When we don't love ourselves, we don't trust that anyone else can love us either. So that's how we can greater impart the divine through ourselves when we are in that role as the child in the story. And when we find ourselves in the position of the safety-minded fisherman, when we are witnessing another person's consequences or choices or life situations, we can literally fall to our knees with compassion. With compassion. Because they're just in the ice water you just got out of. When we watch on television very challenging and troubling things that other people are experiencing anywhere around the globe, we can suspend our judgment and be compassionate and allow the divine to flow through us and impart that love even across the screen. And say, love is all there is. I've been there. I've been there. Sure, we can do whatever we can to demonstrate that love. Sometimes we can't literally get involved. Maybe we can send a check, or maybe we can just pray is a good thing to do, actually. But whatever we do, we have to unwind that scarf of judgment and extend compassion. Extend compassion. And all of those things can keep the love flowing through us to whatever humanity that we are witnessing. And when we have the opportunity to play the role of the Father in life, we can allow love to guide our actions. We can literally lift another person spiritually, sometimes physically, lift them out of the situation that they're in, or at least be a part of that vibrational lift that is available to them. Because we can allow God to work through us. We can allow that love to flow freely through us when we have the opportunity to play the Father and understand that love is our only choice. Love is all there is. So in biblical times, the ancient Jewish people tried to capture that understanding of God. This is a universal understanding that God lifts us. And I believe in Psalms 40:2, the writer was trying to express this very thing when he wrote this, Psalms 42. He lifted me out of the slimy pit of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. So that as good metaphysicians, we'll take out the word he and we'll put in the name of God, love. Love lifted me out of the slimy pit of mud and mire. Love set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. Isn't that what love does? When we get into the slimy pit of mud and mire, you know the place, that place of self-loathing, the mire of judgment, the icy water of non-forgiveness. We've all been there. Any place where you forget that you're part of the divine and you believe for a second that you are separate somehow from the fabric of oneness, you're in that slimy pit. Anytime you settle for good enough, anytime you are making decisions from fear and you can't find the love, anytime you're denying the love in a relationship that you're in that slimy pit. And we've all been there. Love is the only thing that can lift us out of that. Love of others, yes, but most importantly, love of self. Remember, denying love is our only problem, and embracing love is the only answer. So when do we deny love? When we go back to that web of life and all the relationships, when do we do that? We deny love when we're hurt, when we've been in a situation where we've been disappointed, when we have encountered another human being who's been human and we're disappointed and judging, we pull ourselves off, we cut off our flow, and we say, there's no love for me here. That's when we do it. And the only way that love can lift us is for us to allow it in. And the two best ways I know of calling love into a situation are forgiveness and gratitude. Forgiveness and gratitude are two things we can do individually without anybody else's involvement. We can bring forgiveness and gratitude to any relationship, to any situation we find ourselves in. Because forgiveness and gratitude are the ways that love shows up. Forgiveness and gratitude are two important and powerful spiritual practices that literally lift the vibrational energy of any situation you find yourself in. And both of them focus on self-love. Forgiveness and gratitude lift our souls and set our feet on that firm place to stand. What is that firm place to stand? It's a rock of trust. Trust of self and trust of others. Absolutely knowing that love is always present. Always present. The other person may be totally messing up, totally making bad choices, totally stepping on your toes, but love is still there, and you have to trust that. That's that firm, higher place to stand. I could have died that morning at age 6. I could have died. What could have killed me was a fear of being in trouble, of needing to hide in shame that I broke the rules and needing to be quiet and try to solve the problem myself so that no one noticed. That could have killed me. But some part of me understood that my Father loved me more than he was disappointed in my naivete, my ignorance of the danger, my bad choice. I knew he loved me. His love is what made him step right into the danger. And I trusted that love was there for me. His love is what made him different than the man with the scarf. And I trusted his love would bring him right into wherever I was to get me out of it. His love literally lifted me and gave me life. If I have no other example in my life of love lifting me, I have that one. And I am so very grateful for it. But we do have another example, and I have another example, and it involves all of you. It involves this community. As you know, I have been on a very long educational journey. And if any of you have been on that long educational journey, you know you need love. You need lots of love. And you know, when I was caught up in writing papers and doing assignments and taking exams and all that kind of stuff, I could get tired. I could get worn out. But I can tell you that the love of this community lifted me over and over again. I felt your love when you called me Reverend when you weren't supposed to call me Reverend yet. I knew you loved me. I felt your love when you came into classes and you taught me how to teach science of mind. You allowed me to learn, and you shared the most amazing, touching stories. You trusted me, and I so felt it. And you allowed me to be your minister long before I had the title. I have walked some paths with some of you that are dark and scary, but we allowed love to be there, and love lifted us. And it's so very, very important for you to understand that love lives in this room. That no matter how strung out I was, if I could get to Sunday morning, there was going to be a lot of love in this room. And I gratefully thank you for showing up as that love. My job was to let it in. My job was to trust. My job was to come in here and allow your love to come in. That's your job too. You have to show up, and no matter how tired, no matter how exhausted you are, no matter how challenged you are, no matter what kind of icy water you're in, is to show up and let love flow in this community. That's what we have here. That is what we have here. And in closing, I'm going to quote another Sufi mystic poet, my favorite, Rumi. I love Hafiz, but I really love Rumi. Rumi has a lot to say about love too, and this is a very popular quote. It's so popular that when I decided to put it in my talk, the very day that I'm like, okay, I'm going to put that in my talk, David put it on Facebook. I'm like, One mind, okay. And this quote is this: your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. So our task is not to go out and try to find love, but to remember that love is all there is. Love is in every relationship. Love is possible in every situation. We have to take down our barriers and let love flow. Let's do that for each other. Thank you. And so it is.
Hi, I'm David Alt, and I simply want to say thanks. Thanks for taking the time to watch our broadcast here at Spiritual Living Center of Atlanta. We have a vision, and that vision is to reawaken all to their spiritual magnificence. And one of the ways that we are able to do that is through this very medium of broadcasting. So if you got anything out of this, if you felt in any way inspired, or if something spoke to you directly, then I extend an invitation to you to become a part of our family by donating. And there are many ways in order for you to be able to do that. One is to simply go to our website at slca.com, and there you will find all different kinds of prompts that will help you support what it is that we are doing here in Atlanta. One way is to become a pledger. That means that you decide on a monthly basis that you are going to help us with this vision. Another way is to donate through our management system called Fellowship One, another through PayPal, and another even easier way is on your cell phone. You can do what's called text to tithe, and that number is 404-796-7030. Again, thank you so much for your support, and I invite you to come back weekly to see what it is that we're up to. Blessings.